The silent fleet awakens. The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Senate stretched upward like a cathedral made of starlight. Representatives from dozens of species filled the floating platforms that circled the central speaking arena. Admiral Helena Cross stood in that arena now, her weathered hands clasped behind her back, steel-gray eyes scanning the assembled powers of the galaxy. She had requested this audience 3 times over the past year. 3 times, Earth's petition for full Senate membership had been denied. Today would be different. The Zephyrian Chancellor, his bird-like features twisted in barely concealed disgust, spread his golden wings as he addressed the chamber. His voice carried the arrogance of a species that had ruled trade routes for millennia. "The human delegation speaks of equality," he declared, his words echoing through the vast space. Yet their world still burns from the ashes of their own wars. Their technology remains centuries behind our own. What could such a primitive species possibly offer this ancient body? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The gel-like morphins pulsed with satisfied colors in their biotanks. The insectoid Krell clicked their approval, mandibles chattering in their harsh language. Even the peaceful Etherians, beings of pure energy who rarely took sides, flickered with what seemed like amusement. Admiral Cross had heard it all before. For 50 years, humanity had crawled back from the brink of extinction. The climate wars had nearly destroyed them, followed by the resource conflicts that left entire continents scarred. When they finally reached for the stars, they found a galaxy that saw them as nothing more than violent children playing with dangerous toys. The Morphin speaker, a creature that looked like living quicksilver in a containment suit, oozed forward to address the chamber. Its translated voice was cold and clinical. "Humanity's application for Senate membership is denied for the 7th consecutive cycle," it announced. "Their species lacks the stability, wisdom, and technological advancement required for full participation in galactic affairs. They will remain under the Developmental Species Protection Protocol, with limited trading rights and no voice in galactic governance." The words hit the chamber like a gavel. Final. Absolute. Admiral Cross didn't flinch. She had expected this outcome. In fact, she had counted on it. She reached into her uniform jacket and withdrew a small device no larger than a coin. The chamber's security system should have detected it, should have prevented any unauthorized technology from entering this sacred space. They didn't even register its presence. "I came here today with hope," Admiral Cross said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without amplification. Hope that wisdom would prevail over prejudice, that the galaxy's greatest civilizations would recognize potential rather than focus on past mistakes. The Zephyrian Chancellor ruffled his feathers impatiently. "Your species has had decades to prove itself worthy. The evidence speaks otherwise." Admiral Cross smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You're absolutely right, Chancellor. The evidence does speak, but perhaps not in the way you think." She pressed the device. High above the Senate chamber, in the cold vacuum of space, reality began to shift. The orbital defense platforms that protected the Senate world registered nothing. Their sensors showed empty space, just as they had for months. But empty space doesn't cast shadows. Inside the chamber, the massive viewing screens that normally showed peaceful star fields began to flicker. Senators looked up in confusion as the displays shifted to show the space around their world. They were there. 12 vessels, each one larger than the greatest battleships in the galactic fleet. They hadn't appeared suddenly. They had been there all along, invisible to every scanning technology known to galactic science. Dark matter hulls that bent light and energy around them, making them ghosts in the void. But they were ghosts with teeth. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Krell's clicking became a frenzied buzz of alarm. The Morphin's colors shifted to deep purples and reds of panic. Even the Etherian's energy patterns became agitated, flickering like flames in a windstorm. Admiral Cross stood calmly in the center of it all, watching as the galaxy's most powerful beings scrambled to understand what they were seeing. "Impossible!" The Zephyrian Chancellor screeched, his golden feathers now standing on end. Humans lack the technology for such vessels. Your species can barely maintain fusion reactors. You're right again, Admiral Cross replied, her voice somehow carrying over the chaos. We couldn't build these ships, not with conventional technology, not with anything your species would recognize as possible. She gestured toward the screens, where the impossible fleet hung motionless around the Senate world. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering that shouldn't have existed. Dark matter manipulation was purely theoretical, even to the most advanced species in the galaxy. What you're seeing represents 50 years of human determination, Admiral Cross continued. While you debated our worthiness, we were working. While you denied us access to your technologies, we were innovating. While you kept us locked out of your universities and research centers, we were discovering things you thought impossible. The Morphin speaker's form rippled with agitation. If such technology existed, our sensors would have detected its development. Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. Admiral Cross's smile grew wider, and for the first time, there was genuine amusement in it. Your intelligence networks are very impressive. They've been feeding you detailed reports on human activities for decades. Manufacturing centers, research facilities, weapons development, population movements, all of it carefully cataloged and analyzed. She paused, letting the implication sink in. All of it completely fabricated. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the life support systems seemed to quiet as the full weight of her words settled over the assembled senators. Every installation your spies reported, every research project your agents infiltrated, every classified document your networks acquired, we created specifically for you to find. While you were watching our decoys, we were building something you never thought to look for. Admiral Cross activated another function on her device. The screen shifted again, this time showing the interior of one of the dark matter vessels. The senators gasped as they saw row after row of humans in advanced combat suits, their faces hidden behind tactical masks. But these weren't soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, mathematicians, the greatest minds humanity had ever produced, working together on technologies that existed at the very edge of possibility. Dark matter manipulation requires more than advanced physics, Admiral Cross explained. It requires intuitive understanding of space-time relationships that most species approach through pure logic. Humans approach it differently. We feel our way through problems that others try to calculate. She turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from every major species. You see, while you were congratulating yourselves on your superior intellects, you made a fundamental error. You assumed that because we think differently, we think lesser. You measured our worth by your standards instead of recognizing that diversity of thought is itself valuable. The Krell representative, a massive insectoid with razor-sharp mandibles, clicked rapidly before its translator rendered its words into standard Galactic. You speak of peaceful coexistence, yet you bring weapons to our doorstep. This is precisely the violent behavior we expected from your species. Admiral Cross nodded slowly. You're absolutely correct. We did bring weapons. 12 of the most advanced warships ever constructed, equipped with technology that could reshape the balance of power in this galaxy forever. The chamber held its breath. But notice something important, she continued. We didn't fire them. We didn't announce our presence with destruction. We didn't demand your submission or threaten your worlds. We simply revealed that we exist. She gestured again toward the screens. These ships have been in position for 6 months. 6 months during which they could have struck any target in the galaxy without warning. 6 months during which your most heavily defended worlds were completely vulnerable to attack. The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species represented in the chamber began to understand just how precarious their position had been. The question isn't whether humanity is violent, Admiral Cross said quietly. The question is whether we're honorable, whether we can be trusted with power, whether we deserve to be treated as equals rather than as threats to be contained. Pressed her device one final time. On the screens, the 12 dark matter vessels began to shift, not toward the Senate world, but away from it. One by one, they faded from view as their cloaking systems re-engaged. We came here asking for membership, Admiral Cross said. We came hoping for partnership. We came believing that wisdom and cooperation were better than isolation and mistrust. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye, sensor, and energy pattern was focused on the human admiral, standing alone in the center of the great hall. Your answer today tells us everything we need to know about the kind of galaxy we're living in, she continued. But our response tells you everything you need to know about the kind of species we're becoming. Admiral Cross began walking toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. As she reached the threshold, she turned back one final time. Humanity withdraws its application for Senate membership, she announced. We'll find our own path among the stars. Whether that path leads to cooperation or competition will depend entirely on how you choose to treat us going forward. She paused at the doorway, her steel-gray eyes sweeping across the assembled powers of the Galaxy One. Last time. Choose wisely. As Admiral Cross disappeared through the exit, the Senate chamber remained frozen in stunned silence. The implications of what they had just witnessed were staggering. Humanity possessed technology that made their greatest achievements look primitive. They had demonstrated restraint when they could have shown dominance. They had revealed strength when they could have struck from shadow, and now they were walking away. The Etherian representative was the first to speak, its energy patterns shifting to deep blues of contemplation. Perhaps, it said in its whisper-soft voice, we have made an error in judgment. The Zephyrian Chancellor's golden feathers had dulled to a nervous bronze. If their technology is truly superior to ours, then we may have just created the very threat we were trying to prevent, the Morphin speaker concluded, its form rippling with patterns of deep concern. But Admiral Cross was already gone, and with her, humanity's last offer of peaceful integration into the galactic community. The age of human isolation was over. What would replace it remained to be seen. The price of underestimation. 3 months had passed since Admiral Helena Cross walked out of the Galactic Senate chamber, and the galaxy had not been the same since. What the senators had initially dismissed as an elaborate bluff had proven to be something far more dangerous, a demonstration of capability backed by unwavering resolve. The first sign of change came in the Outer Rim territories, where human exploration vessels began appearing in systems that had been empty for millennia. Not 1 or 2 ships, but entire fleets of vessels using the same impossible dark matter technology that had shocked the Senate. They weren't conquering worlds or claiming territory. Instead, they were doing something that terrified the galactic powers even more. They were building. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, the flagship of humanity's dark matter fleet, watching as automated construction drones assembled the skeleton of what would become humanity's first deep space research station. The structure was massive, larger than anything the galaxy had seen outside of the ancient builder ruins that dotted unexplored systems. "Status report, Commander," she said to the woman standing beside her. Commander Sarah Chen, one of humanity's leading experts in dark matter physics, consulted her holographic display. "Construction is ahead of schedule, Admiral. The station's dark matter cores will be online within the week. Once operational, we'll have enough processing power to run simultaneous research projects across 17 different fields of advanced physics." Admiral Cross nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. Through the viewport, she could see the construction site bustling with activity. Human workers in advanced environmental suits moved alongside sophisticated AI-controlled machinery, all working with the kind of coordinated efficiency that came from decades of careful planning. "Any word from Earth?" she asked. "President Martinez sends her congratulations on the station's progress," Commander Chen replied. "She also wanted you to know that the Senate has been active in their response to our activities." Admiral Cross's jaw tightened slightly. "Define active." Commander Chen's expression grew grim. "They've formed what they're calling the Galactic Security Council. 12 species have contributed ships to a joint task force. The Zephyrians are providing command structure, the Krell are handling tactical operations, and the Morphins are coordinating intelligence gathering. All aimed at us, I assume. The official statement says they're monitoring potentially destabilizing activities in contested regions," Commander Chen said with barely concealed sarcasm. Unofficially, they've deployed the largest combined fleet in galactic history with orders to contain human expansion by any means necessary. Admiral Cross was quiet for a long moment, watching the construction drones continue their work. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but carried an undertone that Commander Chen had learned to recognize as dangerous. How large is this fleet? 847 ships, Admiral. Everything from scout vessels to dreadnought-class battleships. They've positioned themselves in the Nexus system, directly between our construction site and the major shipping lanes. Admiral. Cross turned away from the viewport and faced her second-in-command. Sarah, how long have we known each other? The question seemed to come from nowhere, but Commander Chen answered without hesitation. 15 years, Admiral, since the Academy. And in all that time, have I ever asked you to do something that put human lives at unnecessary risk? Never. Admiral. Admiral Cross nodded slowly. Then trust me when I tell you that what happens next is necessary. Signal the fleet. All vessels are to prepare for jump to the Nexus system. Commander Chen's eyes widened. Admiral, with respect, they outnumber us 70-1. Even with our technological advantages. Sarah, Admiral Cross interrupted gently. Do you remember what I told the Senate 3 months ago? About the difference between being violent and being honorable? Yes, Admiral. I meant every word. But there's something else I didn't mention. Something the galaxy is about to learn about humanity that they should have understood long ago. Admiral Cross turned back to the viewport, where the research station's construction continued undisturbed. We don't just build better weapons, Sarah. We build better strategies. The jump to the Nexus system took less than an hour using humanity's advanced dark matter drives. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they found themselves facing the largest military formation in galactic history. The combined fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation, each ship bristling with weapons that could crack planets. At the center of the formation, aboard the Zephyrian command ship Golden Talon, Chancellor Vex studied the tactical displays with growing confusion. His tactical officers were reporting impossible readings. Confirm those numbers, he ordered, his golden feathers rustling with agitation. Confirmed, Chancellor, his primary tactical officer replied. 12 human vessels, identical configuration to those that appeared over the Senate world. There, maintaining standard formation at maximum weapons range. Chancellor Vex's beak clicked in what might have been amusement. 12 ships against 800. Either the humans are insane, or this is another elaborate bluff. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Cross stood with her hands clasped. Behind her back, projecting the same calm confidence she had shown in the Senate chamber. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements betraying no sign of concern despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Admiral, Commander Chen reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Security Council fleet. They're demanding our immediate withdrawal from this system. Put them through, Admiral Cross replied. Chancellor Vex's image appeared. On the main screen, his avian features sharp with authority. Admiral Cross, you are in violation of Galactic Security Resolution 2847. This system has been declared a restricted zone. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Cross studied the Chancellor for a moment before responding. Chancellor Vex, I'm curious about something. When you formed this Security Council, did you consult with humanity about these new restrictions? Your species has no voice in galactic security matters, the Chancellor replied coldly. You forfeited any such consideration when you chose isolation over cooperation. I see, Admiral Cross said thoughtfully. So you've decided that you can dictate human activities in neutral space without our input or consent. Interesting. She gestured to Commander Chen, who nodded and began entering commands into her console. Chancellor, let me ask you another question. When your intelligence services were monitoring our activities over the past 50 years, did they ever wonder why it was so easy to gather information about our capabilities? Chancellor Vex's feathers bristled slightly. Your species lacks the sophistication for effective counterintelligence operations. Admiral Cross's smile was sharp as a blade. You're half right. We do lack sophistication in some areas, but we make up for it with thoroughness. On screens throughout the Galactic fleet, new contacts began appearing. Not ships, but something else entirely. Structures that seemed to unfold from the fabric of space itself, revealing themselves as they powered up weapon systems that made the assembled fleet's armaments look like toys. You see, Chancellor, Admiral Cross continued conversationally, while you were congratulating yourselves on your successful intelligence gathering, you missed something important. You were so focused on watching our ships that you never noticed our infrastructure. The structures were massive, clearly artificial, and had been invisible until this moment. They surrounded the Nexus system like a web, each one positioned at strategic points that would allow them to engage the galactic fleet from multiple angles simultaneously. For the past 20 years, Admiral Cross explained, humanity has been building what we call the Deep Defense Network, automated weapons platforms powered by dark matter cores, designed to protect human interests throughout this region of space. Chancellor Vex stared at the tactical displays in growing horror. His officers were reporting dozens of the structures, each one capable of engaging multiple dreadnought-class vessels simultaneously. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our scouts surveyed this system thoroughly. There was nothing here. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Admiral Cross replied. "The same way your spies saw exactly what we wanted them to see. You've been dancing to our choreography for decades without realizing it." She leaned forward slightly, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the Chancellor's image. "Now let me explain how this is going to work. You're going to withdraw your fleet from our territory. You're going to recognize humanity's right to expand and explore without interference. And you're going to do it because the alternative is a war that you cannot win." Chancellor Vex's voice cracked slightly as he responded, "You're threatening the entire galaxy over territorial disputes?" "No, Chancellor," Admiral Cross said quietly. "I'm explaining the consequences of treating equals as inferiors. You could have welcomed us as partners. You could have worked with us to build a better galaxy for all species. Instead, you chose to maintain your dominance through exclusion and intimidation." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the surrounding weapons platforms. "This is what happens when you underestimate humans for 50 years straight. We don't just adapt to challenges, Chancellor. We turn them into advantages." The communication channel fell silent as Chancellor Vex consulted with his fellow commanders. Admiral Cross waited patiently, knowing that the tactical situation spoke for itself. The galactic fleet was trapped in a carefully prepared kill zone, outgunned and outmaneuvered by an enemy they had consistently dismissed as primitive. Finally, Chancellor Vex's image reappeared on the screen. His golden feathers had dulled to a defeated bronze, and his proud bearing had collapsed into resignation. "What are your terms?" he asked. Admiral Cross's expression softened slightly. "Surprisingly reasonable, considering the circumstances. We want 3 things. First, formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign power with the right to expand and explore without interference. Second, the immediate dissolution of the Galactic Security Council and any similar organizations designed to contain human activities. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between humanity and any species willing to treat us as equals." She paused, letting the term sink in. "In exchange, humanity agrees to respect existing territorial boundaries, participate in joint efforts to maintain galactic peace, and share certain technological advances that could benefit all species." Chancellor Vex looked stunned. That's all? Did you expect demands for tribute? Subjugation of your worlds? Revenge for decades of dismissal and disrespect?" Admiral Cross shook her head. "Chancellor, we're not interested in ruling the galaxy. We just want to be part of it." The negotiations that followed took place over several days, with representatives from multiple species participating via long-range communication. The final agreement, which became known as the Nexus Accords, fundamentally reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity was granted full recognition as a major galactic power, with territory and expansion rights equivalent to any other species. The Galactic Security Council was dissolved, replaced by a more inclusive peacekeeping organization that included human participation. Most importantly, formal diplomatic relations were established between humanity and 17 major species. But perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. The galaxy's older civilizations were forced to confront the reality that advancement came in many forms, and that dismissing other species based on preconceived notions was not just morally wrong, but strategically dangerous. Admiral Cross stood, once again on the bridge of the Prometheus, but this time she was not alone. Representatives from 6 different species were touring the ship as part of the new cultural exchange program established by the Accords. She watched with satisfaction as human engineers explained dark matter manipulation techniques to fascinated alien scientists. "Admiral," Commander Chen approached with a smile, "we've received word from Earth. The President wants to know if you'd be interested in becoming humanity's first ambassador to the reformed Galactic Council." Admiral Cross considered the offer, thoughtfully. "What do you think, Sarah? Ready to trade military service for diplomatic duty? With you leading the way?" "Absolutely." Admiral Cross nodded, then turned back to watch the mixed group of humans and aliens working together on problems that had seemed impossible just months before. "You know what the most interesting thing about this whole situation is?" she mused. "What's that, Admiral?" "We spent 50 years preparing for war, building the most advanced weapons the galaxy had ever seen, planning for conflicts that could have destroyed entire civilizations." Admiral Cross smiled, but this time there was genuine warmth in it. "And in the end, the most powerful weapon we had was the willingness to walk away from a fight we could have won." Commander Chen looked puzzled. "I'm not sure I follow." "The way. Senate was right about one thing, Sarah. Humans are violent. We're aggressive, territorial, and we don't back down from challenges. But we're also something else that they never understood." She gestured toward the mixed group of species working together near the viewport. "We're hopeful. Despite everything we've been through, despite every reason we had to become bitter and vengeful, we still believe that cooperation is better than conflict. That's not weakness, Sarah. That's the strongest thing about our species." As the Prometheus continued its journey through space, carrying its crew of humans and aliens toward humanity's new role in galactic affairs, Admiral Cross reflected on the path that had brought them to this point. They had gained respect through strength, but they had won acceptance through restraint. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, but more importantly, humanity had proven that strength without wisdom was worthless, and that the greatest victories were those that turned enemies into allies. The age of human isolation was truly over. The age of human integration had begun.